Dan. I mean, we allude to the fact that when we have obviously the scenarios where Red Bull Ring is just so vehemently quick. I mean, I felt the brunt of it in the feature race, getting disconnected from the pack and right in the background. It was really a tricky moment for me, and I lost, oodles of delta just because I wasn't in the slipstream. Even in the wet weather, it is so crucial to maintain being part of the train, which obviously I didn't. But moving on to F1 Scott. Scott, obviously a fantastic race we saw in F2. Credit to Tim Marduk for taking the feature race victory. Someone who has been eluded, or certainly been eluded by the championship in F1. Of course, he came close at the end of last season. Slightly different state of affairs this time. Hasn't had his own way in F1, but he did miss a good portion of the races. So the fight back is definitely on.
Yeah, totally. He just always has the pace. It's lovely to see. Good on him for getting into the F2 and putting on such a good performance. And we're in Austria this week. Like, I'm so excited for this. I feel like the qualifying, I love a good qualifying, especially 3 chances for all the drivers. I'm really curious to see how close we're going to get on the sort of cut-out times, for that sort of 15th, 16th, and then 9th, 10th, 11th in Q2. I think we're going to really be in the 10s, maybe if we're lucky, even the 100s. I love Austria. It's a very short track. Everyone really knows the track, popular enough. I feel like we're just going to get some cracking racing. We've already had 2 hours of cracking racing, now we get 4 hours of just insane racing. I'm so looking forward to it. And once again, guys, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, no, it's a pleasure having you, Scott. I mean, we need to allude to the sprint grid, of course, because obviously this is important. At this stage, we've got a reverse championship scenario here, Dan. Starting on pole, Curbs, obviously representing his team at Williams, and looking to try and launch himself higher. He's got a huge opportunity here to score some major points. Chesnoy Gaming alongside him on the front row. Dirk Chocolate in third, who actually was reasonably impressive at Baku.
Yeah, very impressive indeed. And I think that, when we look at this grid as it is, I have a suspicion that it's not going to be quite the same story that we would usually see in a reverse championship sprint race. Because, of course, usually what tends to happen in those sorts of races, you've got those drivers who are, the super quick ones, they're starting in the back, and then everyone further forwards is that. But in and amongst this, we're actually seeing a lot of drivers who are starting a bit further forward by virtue of the fact that they've either not been able to partake in races or they've had bad luck in the races, but they are actually very, very quick. So I would say that the likes of El Rey, Michi, Ben Daly as well, Peya you could say too, maybe even Fabio as well. Those drivers there in sort of the mid to front area of the pack, they're probably going to be having a relatively good time. They might well be laughing when it comes to this one, because they could be able to just get up to the front, break away, work as a group up there at the front, and just disappear into the distance before the likes of Jake, GB, Racing, and Alex Gillen, and MSkyZ, of course, championship leader, will be able to catch them. So I think this will be a sort of a sprint of 2 races, if that makes sense. You'll have that fight at the front. You'll have then a fight of the slower drivers trying to defend from the quick drivers coming through. And then, of course, they will sort of separate into their 2 different packs. And then that's how things may end up turning out.
Could well do. There's a few other favourable names that we have looked at as well over the course of the last couple of seasons. Michi Hoyer, who is relatively new, probably one of the newer drivers to the series, but has got plenty of time under his belt here in the Creator Series, starting on the 3rd row of the grid, which I think will obviously be a huge boon for him. If he can get a good start, he's going to be a very tricky customer to beat. El Rey Guri on his return, obviously made a very fond return as well. I think various of the various members of the Creator Series were absolutely ecstatic to see him back. Dave Gaming further back with Infratic as well. Tim Marduk starting P9, a great chance for him. Huge opportunity if he gets a good start, Dan.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. Of course, sprints, slightly different point system versus the full Grand Prix. So, if we were in the real world, it would be just a top 8 who would get points here today. Off the top of my head, I forget whether we do it to 8 or to lower positions in this, given that we do, of course, 15 positions for the Grand Prix for points. So, so that one has escaped my memory, but P9, if it is that we only award for the top 8 in this sprint, then he's just the 1 place away. And there are drivers ahead of him who, no disrespect to them, they are slower. And some of them are out of practice as well. No disrespect to him, but I can't remember the last time I saw Curbs in a race, to be honest with you. So it's one of those things where, it could well be that drivers out of practice end up being swallowed up relatively quickly. Dirk, I think, is maybe the wild card in all of this that we're seeing here, because we have seen great flashes of speed from Dirk. so far this season. There have been some great qualifying performances, getting out on the front row earlier on in the season, for example, completely on merit as well, not by virtue of the fact of, changeable conditions or anything else like that. So it's, it could be one of their good days. It could be one of their bad days. We don't know yet. We will find out, of course, over the course of this race. But I'm hoping that we're going to get to see some interesting fighting going on here in this sprint.
Yeah, and a potential mouth-watering prospect with some of the names that are further down the grid as well. If we look at Zafso, of course, Season 1 champion. You then got Meraki, who won the championship last season. GB68 still chasing his first win in the championship. And Racing Chai, who has gone close, but has been such a great teammate for the likes of Tom in the past, as well as many others, with Alpine scoring some immense points during their championship winning season. And then you have M-Sky Z, who's currently leading the championship, and Alex Gillen alongside him as well. Despite being a reserve, he does start at the back. We've got quite an incredible lineup in that second half of the grid, and to see them then go in, hammer and tongs, and look at this might be a complication. Wet weather on show once again at Austria.
We do like a bit of wet weather. Well, maybe you don't, but it's. I said earlier on when we were in that race that or just after that race possibly, but I said in a voice channel sometime today that whenever the commentators win, everybody wins really, and I think that wet weather is a catalyst to that really. In that we could end up seeing a very interesting, very spicy race here today. Too hot, too spicy, hot. If you get that particular reference, you watch far too much British television in the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s. It's hopefully going to be a good one. We've got drivers just waiting to get into the lobby, I think, at this stage, or might just be selecting setups and everything else at this early stage as well. Honestly, I'm surprised that nobody has just gone for the, I'm going to just sabotage everybody else and press the start button as soon as possible, and now you've got 30 seconds to be able to sort yourselves out. It's surprising that they've not done that. I would be less surprised if they had. Aaron in the chat is saying that this should be carnage. Yes. Hopefully it is.
It's a very, very menacing yes. Certainly off the back of you there, Dan. Incredible. But yes, I mean, we had the wet weather in the F2 race. It's now since followed up here now in the F1 affair of things here at Austria, which is going to be interesting. Once again, we'll allude to that DRS train, of course, which is not going to be a DRS train. It's going to be a slipstream train heading through the entirety of it. Big thank you to each and every single one of you, by the way, for tuning in to the Creator Series here tonight. If you haven't done so already, please make sure if you're tuned in on Twitch, make sure that you obviously leave a follow as we now head to the grid and get ready to head out. Benjamin Daly already coming out. F2 done. Now to win F1. That is a surefire burst of confidence from Benjamin Daly as we now head out on the formation lap.
It is a great deal of confidence. However, it is potentially a little bit of a red herring here because, he has, which is awfully appropriate given he's driving the Ferrari, but it's one of these things that he's gone from an F2 car where he's done very, very well indeed, won that feature race, did pretty well in the sprint race as well. But, he's got to be careful because getting back into Formula One machinery, it's a totally different beast. You've got the hybrid power that comes in with that. You've got the changeable overtaking modes. You've got all the various other bits and pieces. You've just got the fact that the car is a lot more performative as well. You've got intermediate tyres, whereas in F2 there is just the full wets and the slicks. So all these things, it's one of these things where, we spoke to, or rather I spoke to Adam Sanderson a couple of weeks ago when they went straight from F2 into F1. For Baku, I believe that weekend was, and it was a shock to the system jumping into a Formula One car and then having to re-find your braking points and your other bits and pieces, and of course not be too risky on power because you're now going to 1,000 horsepower underneath your right foot, and with no traction control in these conditions, that could be perilous.
Yeah, just looking at the weather systems now up in front of us for this sprint race, it looks like the wet weather is going to stay. So we're going to be in the midst, I'm sure, of a huge aggressive fight up at the front end. It's going to be a battle of control, obviously caution, consistency, so many elements to consider now as the cars look to get themselves set on to the grid, getting those final moments of tyre warming in place. Obviously, when we head through to the feature race later on, that we're still waiting for a driver to take more than one victory this season. No driver has done that this season in Creator Series, which should suggest that obviously this is the most competitive grid we have seen in recent years, certainly recent seasons, in probably every season we've had in this championship now, as we now see them line up onto the grid. Green flags now being waved by the marshals. There is Dirk Chocolate, who we're currently riding on board with now as we await the lights to go red. We've got Curbs at the head of the order, looking set to get ready to go, as now we put pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go. Curbs now out in front, takes the lead, holds the lead, with Chesnoy Gaming down in second place. Dirk Chocolate, who are riding on board with a tap in the back of the AlphaTauri, as now that guy Vince's teammate bursts on through, as does Michi Hoyer, and El Rey Guri also looking to move himself through as well. P5 for El Rey Guri. Dirk Chocolate having a really difficult start off the line.
Very difficult indeed. Yeah, got it all wrong in the braking for turn number 1. That opened the door and they've gone flying down the order. P6 now. They've just been able to get back ahead of their old rival and old teammate Fabio, but it's currently not looking the absolute rosiest of situations for them. Neither for the F2 feature winner, Benjamin Daly. He's stuck at the moment down in P8. He has moved forward that 1 place off of the line, but that's still not necessarily the forward momentum you would have expected from him, certainly not after his start in the feature as well earlier on. So this has not been the best start for him, but up at the front, Curbs is doing magnificently well, over a second, or briefly over a second ahead of Chesnoid at this early stage. And I'll tell you what, he must have taken it personally when I said that he was maybe a bit out of practice after not being in a few races, because this is certainly looking like a return to form.
Yeah, certainly seems to be harnessing the power of his Williams car right now, very nearly breaking the second gap, and sets the fastest lap of the race in the process, as you'd expect. But heading up through towards turn 1, it is still the Williams out in front. Chesnoid Gaming in second, that guy Vince in third, with El Rey Guri now positioned in fourth. Michi Hoyer just watching on in behind. Tim at Marduk now looking to now burst past his teammate for 7th place, has done so. So the Scuderia Ferrari swap on the run up towards turn 3. Dave Gaming also moving past Infratic. Tim at Marduk going for the double here, manages to overtake Dirk Chocolate. Bragging rights in the content creation community, as now Tim at Marduk takes 6th place away from Dirk Chocolate, who is now trying to defend the place against Infratic. Down the inside, the duels that these two have had through the years of the Creator Series, through the seasons that we have seen, and I have to say, we've seen lots of them here at this track as well. Wheel to wheel they stay. Dirk Chocolate with the favourable inside, Infratic hanging it around the outside as they head through turn 6, but Dirk Chocolate with enough of it in his locker to prevent the overtake happening.
That was a brilliant bit of driving from Dirk there. That's our one contractual obligation to say that out the way. But yeah, it's been a really, really good bit of defense there that we've seen from them. They've been able to just hold on throughout all of that, you know, even whilst they were being harassed and harangued, particularly into turn number 3. Further up the order, you can see here that Ben is not messing around at all. He's straight up there and into P5 now. Chesnoid has just had to defend a bit from that guy Vince. Look at this now, the 3 of these guys all going side by side. That's open the door for El Rey Guri. El Rey goes up into 2nd place, then they've got their sights set on Curbs, but to the inside is that guy Vince. Vince then manages to just give a little bit of a squeeze, then gives the space back. And that then allows El Rey to get a good launch out of the exit of the corner there. If he'd been a bit more aggressive, then that guy Vince would have been a bit on the line, but he might have at least been able to hold on there versus El Rey. But at this stage, that is El Rey up to 2nd place. Great bit of driving there from the Spaniard.
Yeah, and I have to say, Curbs, off the back of the battle, and that's happening further down, he's now increased by nearly another second. He's nearly 2 seconds clear now, and on the cusp of doing so is Infratic and Dirk Chocolate once again fighting it out through turn 6. Dirk Chocolate once again denying him this time. Rasin Chai watching on in behind too, looking to perhaps take advantage of Infratic as he looks to pursue a move on Dirk Chocolate. Michi Hoyer, the sister Mercedes in P6. Would obviously welcome his teammate to try and lofty his prospects up the order. It's got Dave Gaming in behind as well. Caution, yellow flags in sector 3, and oh goodness me, and that is M-Sky Z, the championship leader, has unfortunately come unstuck heading through the final sector in severe damage to that front wing.
Absolutely, yeah, we saw something of a an unfortunate weekend for him last time, and that then massively reduced his championship lead. This is certainly not going to help, but of course it being the sprint rather than the main Grand Prix, the potential damage is limited in that sense. But Peya, absolutely horrible way for their weekend to be getting started as well, all the way down the back of the field. Now Safso's down there too in 19th position, way off the back of M-Sky Z, who in turn is 2.8 seconds off the back of B-Roy now. B-Roy holding on at this stage in the Alpine, but has maybe got a bit more to do at this point in time. They're a little bit stung after having a bit of a couple of incidents in F2 earlier on, so they're going to be hoping for a bit of redemption there, but it's certainly not coming to them at this point in the sprint. And now then, we jump up to Infratic, to Fabio. P9 for him so far, so he's fallen back a little bit of a ways here as Racing Chai has started to move up the field. I'd say of the championship protagonists so far, they're the ones who've been able to make the biggest leap at this stage, not just in terms of positions, but also just relative to everybody behind them as well. You look at Meraki, you look at Alex Gillen and GB, and then, of course, MSkyZ. You know, of those, MSky and GB are the ones who are the more realistic championship threats to Racing. And Racing now up to P8 after they've spent so long trying to get themselves, now P7, in fact, for Racing Chai as they go up into the braking zone. They've already gotten by Dirk Chocolate. A little bit of a tap there on the back end. That's not something which I think Racing will be complaining all too much about, but there we are. It's down now towards turn number 4 for them, and we've got a replay of the contact for Skyzy as well.
Yeah, let's take a little look at this. What a moment it was, as well as we now see the onboard of MSkyZ, and oh goodness me, GB68 just trying to defend to the inside. Didn't deter Skyzy, but just got a little close to the Aston Martin, and unfortunately collected his teammate as well in the process. So Peya, unfortunately the innocent bystander in all of this. Drama at the McLaren garage as they now see themselves down in 18th and 20th respectfully, as we now see that guy Vince making his way around the final corner as well. Lap 5 of 12, curb slides in front, but El Rey Guri has managed to tap back into that second that separated them. There's still another second to find, but El Rey Guri, the momentum currently stacked with him right now. MSkyZ looking to try and recover the damage that was done, obviously overtaking B-Roy now for P17. But like we were alluding to, the big benefiters off the back of this, certainly MSkyZ's incident, of course, Racing Chai, third in the championship, of course, no Tom 97 here this weekend, and Racing is 10 points away from MSkyZ, who's on 78 points in the championship. A decent result in the sprint race could make his life a lot easier here, Dan.
It certainly could, yeah. Right now, as it is, again, if we're using traditional points, it's down the inside. Goes Fabio in the background there. Great move there, and they're still fighting. If we go back to one position here, TV Director, then we can have a look at what's going on there. But Fabio and Dirk Chocolate fighting so hard with one another. It looks like Fabio has now been able to just open up that position slightly and get themselves a car length or two ahead of the Red Bull. But right now, this is one of the spicier battles going on circuit. But just up ahead of them, of course, do not discount Racing Chai and this fight that they've got to get up the field. As I say, if we are using traditional F1 style points scoring system for the sprint, then that's 2 points in the bag for Racing. That reduces that gap down to 8. It's normal points is what I'm being told. Normal F1 sprint points. There we go. There's a bit more specific in terms of what that could mean. But there we are. So yes, 2 points in the bag so far for Racing Chai. And it could be that they're about to get another one here, George.
Yeah, could well do. Now all over the back of Chesnoid Gaming. I mean, 2 additional points will mean that he's only 8 points behind MSkyZ, and it will put him in second place of the championship. Racing Chai now looks to apply the throttle once again, trying to take down the AlphaTauri. That's in front of him here, back straight. Of course, usually you'd have DRS here at this point, but in these tricky wet weather conditions, of course, it is deactivated here at this stage. Just seeing that tighter line as we ride on board with Racing Chai heading through Slosh Goal, but in comes Infratic again. The fight between Dirk Chocolate and Infratic continues. Meraki also stepping into this as well as they head through the Roche and Verth curves, and it is Dirk Chocolate who has unfortunately had to stay behind Infratic and retain that 9th place, but I'm sure he wants that 8th back as Racing Chai goes on the attack.
He certainly does. He's got that move done on Chesnoid Gaming finally. I think there may have been a mistake from Ches coming out through turns 7 and 8 possibly there. Not sure how else that move could have been done in that section of the circuit. But yeah, really good. And now it's, of course, Racing's teammate Mitchie Hoyer in front of him. Now 1.2 seconds is the gap, so he's got to gather all of that time back up and then make the move happen. As we always say in these broadcasts, at some point or another, catching is one thing, passing is another. But as you get up to the back of your teammate in a championship battle where, of course, Mercedes want to maximize their points, as look here, Infratic is thinking about it now, no longer thinking about Dirk Chocolate. Up the inside he goes, and he gets that move done on Chesnoid Gaming, and now on the exit of the corner, he's got good traction. He's moved that Ferrari up in front of the AlphaTauri, but the AlphaTauri is looming large in the mirrors. They're thinking about maybe going for it again on return. Maybe, no, not this time. They instead just sit in behind, and that is 1 point for them if they finish in this place here. But this is all good news for Racing Chai. It means that anyone behind behind who might be able to threaten later on is just being held up by all this battling that's going on, whether that be between Fabio, Chesnoy, Dirk, or Jake.
Yeah, Faenza and Maranello come together, with Maranello now in front. A mistake though by the AlphaTauri again, allowing Dirk Chocolate to go wheel to wheel against the sister team of the Red Bull outfit now, as we see Dirk now pirouetting around that right-hander, coming through Jockenring curve and now down through Red Bull Mobile. And Chesnoy Gaming is a pig for slaughter, as now we see Meraki making his way, having a look down the inside, conscious of the fact that he doesn't want to lose tread on Dirk Chocolate. GB68 and Dave Gaming also coming together out of turn 1 as well. It's a long drag race heading up towards turn 3. Alex Gillen also looking to burst forward, perhaps getting closer to his teammate. Breezes past GB68, and with an inside line move now in towards turn 3, Alex Gillen launching alongside Meraki as they look to come together again. A decisive move potentially for a top 10 place, but Meraki holds on to that position at least for now. But a statement made by Alex Gillen, and here he comes again here, Dan.
He certainly does. He gets it up the inside. He gives a little bit of a love tap as he gets into the corner with Meraki, and Jake is demoted a place. It's not something that happens very often at all, but when it does, it makes for headlines. That's a great move by Alex. Excuse me, Gillen. Oh, goodness gracious me. Yes, that's great for them, and also great for Team Marduk. Look at this then. Benjamin Daly has been able to get the move done on Curbs. Now, what has happened to Curbs? Because they were in the lead by over a second for so long in this race. We've been so focused on the battles further down the order that now we've got Elray versus Vince for the race win here with just a few laps to go. But now, Benjamin Daly is looming large in the mirrors. He said at the start of this race he'd won F2, now time to win F1. It might well be that he's able to do that come the end of this.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Both he and Alex Gillen spent time in his home country of Australia. They were away. They missed the first 3 races of the season campaign, but on their return, Alex Gillen would take a victory at Monza at the Temple of Speed, and is now showing all the credentials yet again after a very calm and secured finish at the Mystery GP that we had last time out. Looking to try and grab the plaudits yet again, as now Racing Chai moves up into 5th ahead of Michi Hoyer, but we've got yellow flags in sectors 1 and 3, so a big moment nonetheless somewhere out on circuit as JD Devil Noob loses a place to B-Roy right at the back. Obviously we can see them there just coming into the pits at the very bottom of the order, but nonetheless, as we now see, JD Devil Noob, goodness me, did not have a wing change at all in the pit stop. Either he didn't take the wing change, or he's damaged the actual car in the pit lane, Dan.
Clearly he wants a bit less downforce, a bit less drag on that car. That's why he's elected to just completely whack the front wing off as he comes out the pits. That, or yes, as you say, it could be that he's ended up not having that repaired. In which case he must have actively set the setting to no, do not fix the wing, because surely running around with no wing on the car, that's only going to lead to the pit crew absolutely repairing it for you in the pit stop. That's bizarre to me. That's really strange. But as it is then, we're watching here up at the front, and this is where we're now starting to see the pace is so close between these cars. We're not seeing any real moves here or any real advantage or disadvantage going in one direction or the other. Ben is looming in the mirrors here, but he's not really able to make anything happen. If he does, and he fights too much with Vince, that's going to allow El Rey to disappear up the road, and then El Rey has an easy shot at victory. So it might be that we come down to a last lap scrap here between these 3, and that last lap is coming in just a few corners time.
Yeah, could well do. Lap 11 now of 12, this being the penultimate lap of the race. They'll conclude this one, and El Rey Guri at the head of the order, enjoying it as well. Maximum points in terms of sprint race points going to him right now. That guy Vince still holding on to 2nd place, with Tim Marduk in 3rd. Still a very well well-produced race here from Curbs in 4th spot. Of course, he's 2.3 away from Tim Marduk, but his mission here on the final lap is to keep Racing Chai in behind in order to guarantee himself at least some modest points coming out of the top 8, as now we see them come through turn 1 yet again. There's Curbs now, Racing Chai in the distance. Further up the order though, it's getting closer between the top 2. El Rey Guri, despite being at the front, being closed upon by that guy Vince here on the final lap. It's all or nothing here in the sprint now. Of course, 8 points could be crucial come the end of this race. That guy Vince now on the tail of El Rey Guri's Alfa Romeo Sauber Esports car now, as they head down in towards Slosh Gold. A look down the inside here from Vince as they look to go wheel to wheel again. He's going to try and force the issue against El Rey Guri, who denies him there at Slosh Gold.
Absolutely, yeah. It was heart in my mouth for a moment there as he went for the move to the inside, but I think he just wasn't brave enough on the brakes there, trying to get up the inside of El Rey. He had the momentum, he was closing in all the way down towards turn number 4, but it just wasn't enough there. And now El Rey is coming around the last couple of corners for glory here, George.
He certainly is coming through towards the Jochen curve now. He has been absolutely sensational on his return. That guy Ben still trying to close him down relentlessly as now head out to the final corner. It's victory in the sprint race for a returning El Rey Guri. He scores the victory in the Creator Series sprint race here at Austria. That guy Vince finishes second. Tim at Marduk, a vastly decent drive in third, with Curbs finishing a respectable fourth. Rasin Chai in fifth, big points going to him in terms of the championship charge as well, with Michi Hoyer finishing sixth. Infratic finishes ahead of Dirk Chocolate, who manages to clamber on one solitary point in 8th place, Dan.
Certainly does, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant race there from everybody, really. I don't think there was anybody who I would say had a particularly horrible race. I think maybe the one blot in that whole record that you could say was SkyZ and GB there, where it just seemed, from a first glance, it's not one of these things where I've got the incident fresh in my head or anything, but just at the time I thought to myself, well, do you know what? It looks to me as though he's basically turned in for the corner normally, whilst the car is alongside him, and then that's what's led to the side-by-side contact. He then came off second best with all that, and then of course there was the floor damage and the damage to his teammate as well. So Payer, a bit of an anonymous race there, but no fault of their own. Radio from Vince there saying, a great race, good points.
Yeah, very important race for that guy Vince, and big points going towards him too. There you can see the final sprint race, of course, results. El Rey Guri finishing top for the Alfa Romeo team. A fantastic result, 8 points going to him, with that guy Vince in second place for Red Bull. Tim Marduk in third, Curbs in fourth, Rasin Chai in fifth, Michi Hoyer in sixth, Infratic seventh, Dirk Chocolate in eighth, Alex Gillen in ninth place, Meraki 10th with GB68 in 11th, Dave Gaming finishing in 12th, Alex in 13th with Chesnoid Gaming finishing down in 14th spot. As we look now further down the order, we've got M Sky Z who finishes 15th, Safso 16th, Hoodie Pete 17th, B Roy 18th, Devil Noob 19th, and Peya finishing in 20th place. So there we have it. An incredible moment, incredible race. Big points there on the table for various drivers, and I think credit has to go to El Rey Guri, has only recently returned to the championship, Dan, but big points here for him as he now takes at least somewhat of a race victory on his return to the championship.
Absolutely, yeah, very good drive from them. It was measured, it was calculated for all that we saw, at least. So it was, yeah, just steadily making up the positions, gaining the time, taking advantage whilst others squabbled and lost time. Particularly that move to get into P2 was brilliant. It was inspired, just letting the two cars in front fight through turn number 1, take the normal optimum racing line through there, and then just outpower them all the way up the hill to turn number 3. Absolutely brilliant bit of racing there from them. And then, of course, just managed that pace out in front. Did not get phased at all by Vince having a scrap with them and everything else. It just all seemed very, very civil up and down the field, really. As I say, it was just really that one incident for M Sky Z was the only thing I could point out as something negative to take from that race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think phenomenal drive, first of all, as well from Rasin Chai. Some important points in terms of the championship. I mean, Scott, from your take, who were the standout performers from your point of view? There definitely were a few.
Oh yeah, definitely. Ben Daly, Tim at Marduk, done very well. Got right up there, kept a good position. Definitely that guy Vince as well. And El Rey just been very consistent in that race. That was really fun to watch. I was on boards with Vince, and there was just that one opportunity in the Sector 2 where he kind of had to go for it on that final lap. And once he didn't get that right hander, once he didn't get in front, he kind of just said to himself, like, fair enough, GG, great race. A couple of people I felt a bit sorry for in the race as well. Chesnoid nearly lost the car, to be honest, when coming to the sort of final few corners, went too much on the curb coming out, nearly spun it. Quite a good save, to be honest, to not spin it out, but I ended up losing a lot of positions and sadly was kind of out of the points. And Dark Chocolate, been looking good, but went wide lap 1, turn 1, lost a few positions, done his best to kind of get back into it, but you'll definitely be wishing that didn't happen.
Yeah, feeling the pressure from Infratic, I think, through the course of that race, eventually losing out on the P7 that could have got him more than one solitary point anyway, nonetheless. But we also need to talk about McLaren and obviously the issues that they had through the course of that race. Unfortunately for MSkyZ, championship leader, a major disappointment, I think, on his part. I'm sure he would have wanted to take at least something out of this race, certainly based off what we saw from the likes of Rastin Chai, who is in the championship fight and very close to the top as well, has reduced that deficit with a good result here too. You know, there's obviously going to be a feeling of bitterness there, no doubt, for MSkyZ, and it's never nice to start a race weekend with a result like that before you head into qualifying in a feature race. It kind of sets you back a little bit, do you think, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it puts you in a negative mindset, ultimately, and you end up then starting to compound that. You know, psychology is so important for a racing driver, whether that's in the real world or in esports or whatever it happens to be. And so, you know, when you get past, for example, that's when you might be a bit more likely to go a bit too late on the brakes into a corner, trying to get that place back or trying to stay with the person who got you. And then you make a mistake, and then from that mistake, oh, and there's now desperation to go even further in another braking zone to make sure that you can make up for that time you lost, and then you make another mistake, and so on. Or, conversely, the opposite can happen. You can then start to be really, really conservative, braking much earlier than you need to, and then losing time that way, just the old-fashioned way of just being slower. So it's one of these things that can affect you, and certainly, I mean, the benefit they've got at least is that there are 2 sessions. You know, there is the sprint, that's done, they can now compartmentalize that, they can put that in the back of their mind, just throw it away, and then they can get ready to go racing again in the main Grand Prix. And if they manage to get a good qualifying performance in, where it's all just about how quick you can make the car go over one lap, all on your own, no worries with other people around you. It is Austria, so you never know, maybe we will have worries of people around you. But, you know, it's one of these things where, yeah, they just need to gather themselves back up again and they can put in a good performance.
Yeah, is it a case, Scott, that they have to hit the reset button here at this stage after that disappointing moment heading out on the sprint race?
Yes. The one way you could look at it is that we don't usually have the sprint race in front. First off, great feature. Creator Series guys kind of like that. Reverse grid sprint, putting it in front, really gives the guys at the bottom of the chance a great chance. But, you know, everyone's had like 12 laps, sorry, how many laps? That was about 12, right? Of practice on Austria now. So now they're going to start a full qualifying session, maybe even more warmed up and ready. So if anything, what I was saying earlier about the close calls between the elimination spots, that might even be even tighter now, because everyone's feeling it a bit, and everyone feels like, okay, this is it, and now we're kind of starting, you know, now we get 45 minutes of qualifying, and then obviously our feature length race.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dan, when we look ahead to moments like that, we understand Parc Fermé is indeed on. They have to be consistent in terms of their setup selection. So whereas we had a full wet race heading through the course of the sprint, could it be said that there is a chance that some of the drivers may have adopted something that might be more useful in a dry sense when trying to factor in what could happen during the actual main race?
Potentially. I mean, this is the thing, is that so often in Formula One, whether that again be in the real world or the virtual world, you know, it's not about making your car as quick as possible. It's about making it as least slow as possible. Because anything that you do, any adjustment you make, while it might make you quicker in one area, it's going to have a trade-off somewhere else. If you add a bit more downforce on, you can be quicker in the corners, but you'll be slower in the straights. And then how does that affect you? Well, in a wet race, yeah, that's a good thing, because it presses the car into the ground. You've got more likelihood of then getting temperature into the tyres. Then that optimum temperature means the tyres can work as intended. And certainly in the case of a full wet Formula One tyre, well, when one of those is going at full speed, it's able to clear enough water to fill 3 or 4 bathtubs in a second. So that's great. But when you're then going in a straight line, in a race like that, not really a huge problem. But you get to a dry race and all of a sudden, yes, you're going to be mighty quick in the corners, but maybe you'll overwork your tyres because you're now pressing the car too much into the ground. That then has the impact on tyre wear, that might then limit your strategy options, and then of course there's the DRS effect to consider. And when you open DRS, if you've got high wing angle, then you'll gain some straight line speed, but it's not going to be, certainly in the way in which the game works, it's not going to be something which then allows you to blast by everybody else in the same way. It might simply allow you to catch up to people and never be in a position to actually make a move on them. So it's all trade-offs. And so, you know, it might well be that you've seen some drivers struggle in that race potentially, but now their car will come alive in the dry. We will wait with bated breath, of course.
Well, when we look at adaptability and also being flexible when it comes to making key decisions during the race, whether it be in the setup, whether it be during the course of making overtakes, and also trying to position the car in all the right places, would you say, despite obviously doing the race that he did in an F2 car, of course, concerning Tiamat Marduk, of course, coming off the back of a sensational race in the sprint, managing to pick up a sprint podium, shall we say, and then off the back of the F2, taking the victory in the feature race. So he has some experience now at Austria today in these turbulent conditions. Obviously, we didn't get to see the track dry up at all or see those sorts of scenarios change, but he wouldn't have necessarily known that heading into the race. So at this point, Scott, would you say that the ball is very much in Tiamat Marduk's court in terms of his experience around the Austrian circuit?
Well, I'm leaning to yes, because, like, yes, you can be fast at this game. Every one of these drivers is fast. They can all on a different day probably get right up to that top spot. So what it comes down to is consistency, right? And that's what Tiamat Marduk has shown from the moment we turned on the stream a few hours ago, is that he is Mr. Consistent. Seems to just be avoiding all the trouble. And then sometimes in these sort of, we see the drivers giving a lot of respect to everyone else, but sometimes it can all get a bit too much. And that is the ability that if you can avoid all the trouble, that's what's going to get you up on the spots, because everyone is fast.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, credit to Curbs as well. I've got to give him a lot of credit. It was a huge mission for him to try and retain the top spot. Of course, eventually he did get eaten up by the rest of the field by a very fast El Rey Guri, but 4th place in the sprint, and a boon of confidence to him because he seemed to manage the wet race pretty well, Dan.
Certainly did. He's been known to beat himself up a little bit when he doesn't do well and when he's had mistakes, or even when it's not been his fault at all, when it's just been collected by somebody else's incident. He then looks immediately deflated and sort of, unhappy, which, is understandable given the circumstances. But at the same time, it's one of these things where you just want to kind of give him a bit of a hug and sort of pick him up and get him going again, sort of thing. But yeah, very, very good race from what we saw there. And it was, it was a shame that he managed to end up falling down the order towards the end. But 4th place is still 4th place, so that's 4-5 points in a sprint race. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but yeah, that's still a good result for him overall. And I think that if we're able to see more of that from, again, it comes back to this idea of psychology of a racing driver, because now that he's gotten a good result in the sprint, hopefully that's going to then bounce him forward in the main Grand Prix. And yeah, maybe in terms of qualifying pace, he's not going to be quite up there with the absolute top dogs, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Curbs in Q3 in this upcoming session. I wouldn't be surprised to see him challenging for somewhere in the region of that maybe mid to lower part of the top 10. But we'll have to wait and see. We're just being told that we have to find out the weather. And if anybody in the chat is from Austria, if you wouldn't mind just opening the window, holding a hand out, and then we'll wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I can tell you from what we're seeing at the moment, it is a wet one. So we have got a wet Q1 in front of us here, Dan. Another team that are looking to bounce back here at this point are Aston Martin. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the most graceful of performances from GB68. And Zafso, of course, Season 1 champion, not having the easiest of runs as well. And given their strength as a team, as a unit, I mean, while GB is still awaiting his first race win, he took 2 P2s at the very start of the season campaign. And Zafso has taken points near enough in every race, bar the most recent one in the Mystery GP. Is it a case that this is, them derailing at this point, or can they recover here?
I think they can recover. They're both very consistent, very good, very quick drivers, and they work well together as well. If you ever listen to either one of their streams, / watch one of their streams, because, you can do that, then, you can always hear there's good communication going on. There's always good planning to what they do. I mean, occasionally they'll try something, it doesn't work. But, that's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes these things just don't work the way that you intend. But, right now, for how it is, I think this is a blip as far as that team is concerned. I think they will get back to it in the not too distant future. And they'll do so with aplomb. They'll be in a good position, I think.
Yeah, they'll be hoping to. Now as we see Chesnoid Gaming cross the line and prepare to get set for another lap here in Q1 this time around. I say another lap, this of course being his first fast run on intermediate tyres, so not necessarily risque enough for wet weather tyres here at this stage. And dances past the Haas that makes its way out as well. Of course, Hoodie Pete in that car, as well as Dave Gaming, both on their outlaps here at this stage. Hoodie Pete, of course, being the one that he met heading up towards turn 3. As we now see Chesnoid Gaming now heading down the back straight. And then it's down in towards the famed Schloss Gold bend. Very, very tricky around turn 4. need to make sure you really hook it up with the apex, take a wide line on entry, and then cut through, which is exactly what Chesnoid is trying to do. Time your braking point, and at the same time your downshifts too, a little squirrely on exit. Curbs Team Radio, we got points. Great start for us. It certainly was a fantastic performance for Curbs and Williams. Chesnoid Gaming here at this stage on his fast run right now, looking to put at least a banker in place, and it's looking like a smooth run so far.
It certainly is, absolutely. And as they make their way through here, the interesting thing is going to be whether or not these drivers have fueled up for multiple laps and they just keep going and going and going, or whether there's just enough fuel to do the one flying lap and then that's it, away you go. Now, in terms of the forecast, it's looking as though it will dry up over the course of this session, but the question will be, of course, how quickly it does that. Now, as we watch Chesnoid go through turn number 1 there's a very important thing that we've not really mentioned so far, and that is the curbs themselves, not curbs the person, but the curbs around this circuit. Of course, in the real world, they cause all sorts of problems which are not replicated in the game, thankfully. In the case of some of these problems, things like oscillating wings that end up shaking themselves off of the car in previous generations of Formula 1 car. It hasn't really happened in the same way in this modern era, but of course the very high curbs somewhere around the circuit, so that can potentially lead to floor damage. And then there are a few curbs dotted about the place where if you hit them wrong, you can end up having a great big spin. Things like the turn 6 curve, for example, that's one where if you touch the inside curb, then the back end can just be completely lost to you and you fly away from the circuit. As we start to see some times coming in now, we've got Racing, then Elray, Perya, Chesnoid, Dave Gaming, and JD Devil Noob, but in a second we'll see Safso, who comes across the line, and that is P2 for them for the time being. So can Aston hit back? Well, I think that's a good first shot as far as Safso is concerned.
Yeah, heading up towards the line, and we obviously saw as well Elray Guri setting a purple third sector, heading through towards the final, the final ascent in towards turn 1. Rasin Chai still fastest though, 1:11.250. Safso second fastest, the Season 1 champion, as we alluded to, off the back of a tricky sprint race. Looks like he's pushing all the demons behind him. Still quite a lofty gap though between them up at the sharp end. We have got of course, nearly 4.5 tenths separating Ps 1 and 2. Dirk Chocolate and Tiamat Marduk, Meraki, many drivers further down the order, all looking to, well, certainly set their first laps on the board. The bottom 10, incidentally, all need to do it. There's Dirk Chocolate, who's now making his way through the middle sector into sector 3. I can tell you the GB68 has gone purple in the first sector with a 17.393, so improvements already on display from Aston Martin, looking to bounce back in the best possible way. Dirk running very wide off the apex, heading out of the Jochenrink corner, and it has cost him, no doubt, as he makes his way up towards the line. Let's see what time he does marshal in. P9 with a 1:13.046, but GB68 still purple in that first sector. No one's taken it off him. He's gone and done a 32.429 in sector 2, which is actually pretty requisite of where Elray Guri is as well, give or take a couple of hundredths, as now we see GB stretch through the Jochenrink corner now this time. And he's being pursued as well by Alex Gillen, who set a 17.457. Fine margins between them both here at this stage now as GB comes up towards the line and goes second fastest. As Aston Martin second and third. Alex Gillen now goes second fastest himself as well. Positions the AlphaTauri up on the second position part of the grid here in this early stage. Of course, we're still in Q1, but at this tender stage, Racing Chai at the top, but being closed down by the likes of Alex Gillen and Aston Martin with a perfect response.
Yeah, utterly brilliant, but even more brilliant is the Mercedes response, as Michi Hoyer now goes top of the timesheets with a 1:11.2 to be just a few hundredths ahead of their teammates. And so that then is Mercedes 1-2, briefly Aston 3-4, before then Alex Gillen comes along, and then Elray Guri comes along with a 1:11.0 on their latest lap. That puts them to the top of the timesheet. So that, to me, indicates, George, we are seeing a big ramping up of the track at this early stage.
Yeah, we certainly are. At the top, it's still Elray Guri, 1:11.054, mustering in a very decent time. Of course, off the back of winning the sprint race, coming back in confident fashion yet again and putting 1.5 tenths plus on Michi Hoyer as B-Roy now sets a 1:10.887. So conditions now look to be on the change here at this point, as we now see the cars head up through towards turn 1. Fantastic lap from that guy Vince as well to go fastest and take it away from B-Roy. Track definitely improving, Dan.
It certainly is, absolutely. Yeah, let's take a look at this then as they go through the next few corners then. And up to the line, MSkyZ goes. It's P7 for them, so it's quicker than the Astons. But of course, with the track ramping up, you would have to say that's actually probably not a very good time in the great grand scheme of things. SkyZ needs to find a bit more pace here if they're going to make it through to Q2, I suspect.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. MSkyZ 7th place, and he's going to have to likely come back and go again. Of course, the gap's quite heavy in between he and that guy Vince, but heading through the middle sector. There's Hoodie Pete as well, heading in towards the final sector out of Sector 2, coming out of Slosh Gold at Turn 4. DRS now enabled, so the track is improving dramatically. We could yet see a twist-up with the slick tyres making an appearance here out on track. But here at this point, we're seeing the intermediate tyre runners with that guy Vince up at the very head of the field as we now watch on as Hoodie Pete descends out of the final 2 bends. But this lap will surely not be representative because at this stage, with the track drying the way it is, these inters are just going to fall off here, Dan.
They will, yeah. They will absolutely fall away if they keep pounding around. They do need to come in and change those tyres at some point. Even if you're looking at a difference of, as we saw, you know, last week, for example, with just a few. Look at that. SkyZ goes with a 109.7, a whole 1.1 seconds faster than what that guy Vince has been able to accomplish. So, yeah, this track is ramping up in a big way. In fact, you can look at it now. There's barely any standing water left whatsoever. I think we're not that far away from slicks, you know.
Well, we should be. DRS is now effective, so we've got Rasin Chai, though, who has just gone and done a 16.7. He's just stolen the purple first sector away from Zafso, who had it initially. Alex now, F1 Alex, down in 19th, has just gone purple in the middle sector himself. That's been stolen by Zafso as well here at this point, but Rasin Chai, could he be about to take it away from Zafso, and also that guy Vince, who is also improving on his lap right now. Holds purple in that second sector. F1 Alex goes to the top of the timesheets with a 108.740, 8 minutes and 45 to go. And now Rasin Chai looking to lob his time. Zafso goes fastest, however, with a 108, and now to the top, that guy Vince. But all eyes here on Rasin Chai with a 16.7 in Sector 1, a 30.6 in Sector 2. He will go to the top with a 107.997, a 107.997, and the only driver in the 107s to boot. But JD Devil Noob is also improving, and he's gone purple in Sector 1.
Certainly have. The times are tumbling. Ben Daly on screen at the moment has set a fastest middle sector of anybody, and their time is a little bit far away from that fastest first sector that we've seen so far. A new fastest middle sector from JD Devil Noob as across the line goes then Benjamin Daly, and that then is P1 for the time being, a 107.479. And what's Devil Noob going to do? Well, they're going to do nothing, apparently. They're going to head straight back into the pits, I think. No, never mind. The timing screen was lying to me. They're still on a lap. And around the final turn then, this will be pole. Yes, it is. Look at that then. Medium tyres, getting them to the top of the timing sheet so far. That's an intelligent move. Gets your first lap time on the dries done on the tyre that is not that oh-so-precious soft tyre that you're going to need as many of as possible to make this qualifying session count.
Yeah, fantastic lap from JD Devil Noob, now managing the harsh conditions with ease here at this point. Chocolate going for a very unorthodox strategy indeed on the wet tyres on a dry track. What's the reasoning behind this, Dan?
That, I think, is something to do with Dirk's recent endeavours in skiing, where they wanted to be able to feel the real slide underneath them. Maybe it's actually a Tokyo Drift tribute, but what they've done there is they've gotten right in the way of one of the Alpha Tauris that comes spearing through. I think that may have been Alex Gillen. And as they go down towards the last couple of corners then, is Dirk going to decide to go into the pits? No, instead they're going to finish off their lap on wet tyres on a dry track. Let's see just how quick or slow this is. Across the line goes Alex Gillen with a new fastest time. It's actually an improvement from Dirk Chocolate. They improved by 1.1 seconds versus their previous personal best, so 111.084. That puts them just a few hundredths away from El Reguri. But Alex Gillen at the top of the timesheets with a 104.6. This is now starting to get much more into the territory we expected it to get to when we thought that there might be a dry qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely right. Alex Gillen now to the top with a 104.620 stellar lap, and is now looking to go faster again. And now with a 16.174 in the first sector, this looks like it's going to be a very dynamic run indeed for him right now. A small matter of 6 minutes to go here at this stage. And Gillen, despite being at the top, I'm sure we'll have plenty of others looking to try and draw themselves closer to the front end. Chesnoy Gaming coming to the end of his lap right now as well. Goes to the top, incidentally, with a second fastest, I should say, with a stunning lap indeed. And Alex Gillen, despite holding on to that top time, now sees his sister AlphaTauri up on the, well, in the top 2 places. AlphaTauri currently enjoying dominance here in Q1 so far.
That's a sentence that will never be said again because, of course, they're now Visa Cash App RB, which is the worst team name that has ever been devised in Formula One history. Even MasterCard Lola was better. But there we are. So we've got Michi Hoyer going through the middle sector right now. Flashing red light at the rear of that Mercedes, though, so I doubt this is going to be a quick lap because that indicates that they've got, well, actually, they've got intermediate tyres on, so actually that could be no indication of them not using ERS, but they do decide to go into the pits regardless. So that is the end of their run. As far as that's concerned. So let's just wait and see what they're able to accomplish when they put a set of dry tyres on. As this driver on our screens now, I apologise that, of course, this is not necessarily on your screens, those of you listening, but on screen now is GB68 going down into turn number 4, gets that DRS close onto the brakes, chucks the car in. Nice smooth line there taken by them on the run through 5 down into turn number 6 now. They get onto the curb just briefly there on the inside, just kissing it enough to be able to extend that use of the track as much as they dare through turns 7 and 8. It's all looking good for GB so far. It's a purple first sector. It's a personal best in the middle. They come round the penultimate turn now. Just got to get it right for the final corner. Through that final turn they go up towards the line now for GB68. DRS is open and it's second place. It is just a few hundredths shy of what Alex Gillen has been able to manage, but they have broken the AlphaTauri stranglehold on P1 and P2.
They certainly have. MSkyZ, though, has just gone purple in the first sector with a 16.048. A truly marvellous time to get stuck into, certainly now with 4 minutes just to go. Just a little note, everybody, we will be back with the on-screen stuff shortly. We're just having a few technical issues, but we will have it back for Q2. We do apologise. Just stay sat in place just for now. We'll take you through it as we now see MSkyZ, second sector purple here at this stage of 28.646, enough to surely grant him a position where he could yet challenge for P1 here in Q1. Coming through the Jockenring corner, final bend at Red Bull Mobile curve. F1 Alex takes the top time for now, but it'll surely be usurped by MSkyZ, who goes fastest with a blistering 103.973, more in line with the dry times we expect, and a perfect response from McLaren after a very difficult sprint race.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we were talking about, and that they need to just compartmentalize, get themselves all reset and ready to go. As look at this, there's destruction of brake marker boards going on the left-hand side there as the cars start to filter through turn number 3. Then we'll take a look at the moment at Dave Gaming, who is making their way into the pits, it looks like, actually. So we won't take a look at Dave Gaming anymore. Let's have a look at that guy Vince, who is coming towards the end of the second sector, or in the middle of the second sector now, I should say, as they try and make their way through and around by the Ferrari there. They get into turn number 6, diving back down the hill now through the left-hander, getting in towards the end of that second sector. Across the line they go, splitting that time. It's no purple middle sector, but it is a personal best for them. So their RB19, and it's not got quite the performance of the real-world machine, but it is in good hands at least. The driver that we know is quick, who did well in the sprint, coming around the final turn now. Dat Guy Vince up to the line. Where are they going to put that Red Bull? It is all the way up to P5. A good time from Dat Guy Vince, but it is nearly 1 second off of MSkyZ. MSkyZ, remember, a 103.9. Dat Guy Vince with a 104.7.
Yeah, and El Guri in the drop zone right now as well. Some big names to watch out for. Dirk Chocolate also in the bottom 5. A 16.7 in Sector 1, a 29.8 in Sector 2. It's not too bad here from Dirk Chocolate. Enough, though, for safety. Goes 11th fastest here at this point. But obviously, there is still danger. Rasin Chairod on the precipice as well. He's currently sat in 14th. Zafso as well, right on the bubble of elimination here at this point as well. Michi Hoyer, who's currently 18th fastest. He's in the drop zone, needs a clutch lap here at this really sensitive stage. Rasin Chai has just gone purple with a 16.045 in Sector 1. But Michi Hoyer, who's looking to try and muscle in at least an opportunity, he's backed out of it. Zafso's backed out of his lap as now El Guri now makes his way up towards the line. Goes second fastest ahead of his teammate F1 Alex. Incredible lap from El Guri. Not quite the 103s, but still enough to go second fastest. Michi Hoyer goes up to 5th and now relegates his teammate Rasin Chai, who's in 16th, but has gone purple in the first 2 sectors, a 16.045, a 28.6 in sector 2, a truly blistering lap here from Rasin Chai. Could it be enough to go fastest? It could yet, you know. It is a 103.902 and pips Sky Z by a mere 71 thousandths. B-Roy goes 13th fastest and does enough to save himself. And now Infratic, the only car to not set a time, is on an outlap as well here, Dan.
They certainly are. Yeah, this is looking to be a frantic end to the session here, especially for Fabio. They've not set any banker times up to this point, as you pointed out there. So this is going to be do or die for the Ferrari driver. Let's jump on board and see how this lap goes for them here. They're going to go through the final turn now, and let's see just how this lap shapes out for the Ferrari driver then. We get their picture-in-picture as well. You can see them full concentration face as they make the run up towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes then and into that first corner, not touching the inside curb at all and making as much use out of that exit curb as they possibly can. Up the hill they go through sector 1 then. Is this going to be a purple first sector? Let's wait and see as they go across the sector split now. And it's not. It is, in fact, a personal best, though. Unsurprising, given it's their first and only lap of Q1. But through turn number 3 they went then. It looked relatively tidy, though, maybe the slightest bit deep into that braking zone, just a bit wide of the apex. Down now into turn number 4. They've got that car hooked up now at this stage. And little bit cautious exit, it must be said. Not using all of that road on exit, as we've now seen some drivers retiring from the session, deciding that's it, that's enough for me. And now then, as we come down through turn number 7 and into then turn 8 to immediately follow after, it looks like Infratic is doing a good, if not spectacular job right now. It's a personal best in the middle sector. It's looking reasonably quick, but not the quickest thing that we've seen all day. Into the final turn now goes Infratic. He's kept it clean. It's a valid lap, but it's maybe not the quickest they could have produced, but it is able to get them through. It is P12 for Infratic with a 104.6 and using only 1 set of tyres.
And Zafso managing to barely grab onto safety, managing to qualify 15th fastest. Enough to put him ahead and relegate Dave Gaming. B-Roy in the relegation zone. Major shock as the current champion, the Creator Series champion, Meraki, is out and is starting from the very back of the grid. Real heartbreaking scenes for the Williams driver, but at the head of the field, it's Rasin Chai who has grabbed the top spot. We're going to lose Dave Gaming, B-Roy, Hoodie Pete, Dirk Chocolate and Meraki from qualifying as we head into Q2. But Zafso, 15th fastest, barely getting through. What a statement in the, well, what a clutch lap as well, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be one of those things where there might be a little bit of sweating going on in the background there. Not necessarily in the sense of, you know, we've got the drivers pushing as hard as possible. I mean, I'm sure they will be doing that regardless. But I think that a bit of nervous sweating might be going on over in the Aston Martin camp, particularly on Safso's side of the garage.
Yeah, without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, Scott, off the back of a tremendous run for Rasin Chai, obviously Mercedes looking really strong. Michi Hoyer with an absolutely tremendous effort, managing to go 5th fastest. A grand recovery from Infratic right at the very last moment, a last gasp. Same for Safso, they left it right to the very last minute. And it's very risky when you go through that procedure. And obviously relegating some really key characters. Meraki going out in Q1.
Yeah, that is the biggest shock for me. Although I'm doing my team radio thing, I've been talking to him. He's kind of like, yeah, that's fine, and he's put a positive spin on it, and now he's kind of saying last to first. So, you know, keep an eye come race time, because, you know, he may be able to turn around. He's obviously a champion at this, so if anyone can do it, he can. Very, very, very lucky for Saf, so that was quite a close time, and he'll be very happy to get through, but also at the same time he's going to be a bit worried coming to Q2. Everyone seems quite consistent. Didn't see any major skill issues in that whole time. Just seems like some people just that have that little bit extra pace come qualifying. The 103s, that's quite fast.
That is stunning. I mean, obviously we see that at the very top, you know, at the very top level. When you go onto time trial, you only have to look on there. I mean, various of the times that we generally see at the very top are the 103s, the 102s, if you're lucky. But a truly crushing lap from Rasin Chai to go fastest. Sky Z, I think he'd be pleased. Obviously, he came back the correct way, really, off the back of a very difficult race that they had in the sprint. Not a bad way to bounce back, but still, at this stage, there is still lots to discover. We're now only in Q2. we're going to be eliminating yet another 5 drivers. The top 10 then head through to Q3, where we have the pole shootout. So it's not all said and done yet, Dan.
Certainly isn't. Absolutely not. Plenty more yet to do. We've got, as you rightly say, we've got Q2, Q3 still to sort out. And when we get to the end of that session, those sessions, I should say, we're going to wait and see. We're also waiting to see whether or not our various fixes have been able to get the stream working again. It certainly looks as though everything is working from the brief glance I've had over at the other monitor. So yes, hurrah, we can all celebrate. And Dan James saying in the chat, good job, Tech Man. That is our producer Rob, Space Ghost, you might know him as. And yes, he's done an absolute champion job. Very well done too.
Yeah, make sure everyone in the live chat gives credit to obviously our producer.